A poor girl struggled with her dress while a billionaire CEO, known for his ice-cold demeanor, found himself unexpectedly falling madly in love. It all began on a brisk morning when Ava Brooks raced down the sidewalk as if competing in the Olympic hurdles. Even though her hurdles were none other than her own legs, a broken purse strap, and a loose ballet flat that slapped the pavement with every step. Her phone buzzed repeatedly, hidden in the depths of her bag between a pack of mints and an uncapped lipstick. It was her friend Megan, whose messages carried the urgency of an evacuation alert. "Ava, you have exactly 5 minutes to get here." Desperate to reply while sprinting, Ava's fingers fumbled over the keys, and her hastily typed response was so garbled that autocorrect transformed it into bringing cheddar and mashed potatoes. With a resigned sigh, she abandoned the idea of composing a proper message. Survival would have to come first. Explanations later. The massive glass facade of Reed Global Group loomed into view. A spark of hope flared in Ava's chest. Maybe. She still had time. But then her eyes caught her reflection in the polished glass, and that hope shattered in an instant. There, staring back at her in dismay, was a woman whose dress was an absolute disaster. The zipper, meant to be discreet, at the back, now awkwardly ran down the front. A giant clothing tag, large enough to pass as a restaurant receipt, was clinging to her chest like an unwanted invitation. To top it off, the neckline, designed to be at the back, had been strategically misplaced. Panicked, Ava spun around to check her back in the reflective window, nearly causing a pedestrian accident with her improvised dance routine as she desperately attempted to fix her attire. With frantic movements that could have been mistaken for a reality show challenge, she tugged at the hem, twisted a misaligned strap, and even tried to rip the offending tag away with her teeth while muttering under her breath, "I knew I should have worn jeans. Who invented giant tags? They should be arrested. I'm a walking disaster." Meanwhile, high above the bustling lobby, on the top floor of the imposing building, Jackson Reed was striding down the corridor with his signature "Don't talk to me" expression. Renowned for his razor-sharp business acumen and a schedule so regimented it seemed almost robotic, he was en route to another routine merger meeting. Then, as he glanced out the window, he caught sight of Ava battling her own reflection. In the span of just a few seconds, everything changed. The normally reserved CEO burst into genuine, booming laughter, a sound so hearty that it reverberated through the halls and left employees wondering if someone had hacked the office speakers. His assistant, Ethan, hurried in with concern. "Mr. Reed, are you all right?" he asked as he noticed Jackson clutching his stomach. With a wide grin, Jackson pointed out the window. "Look at this insanity. A girl out there is fighting her own dress as if it were an angry octopus." Ethan peered outside and saw Ava, still embroiled in a battle with her reflection. "I think she's just fixing her outfit," he ventured, but Jackson shook his head vigorously. "That isn't fixing an outfit. It's an epic battle for fashion survival." His laughter grew so infectious that he was forced to sit down, canceling his first meeting. "I need to see this girl up close," he declared, still chuckling. Down below, Ava had finally managed to secure her dress with a lone bobby pin, creating an ensemble that somehow straddled the line between avant-garde, influencer, and creative survivalist. Taking a deep breath, she stared at her reflection and resolved, "This will have to do." Pushing through the revolving doors with an extra burst of determination, she nearly got wedged between the glass panels. The moment she stepped into the sophisticated lobby, reality hit her hard. The space was immaculate, the marble floor exuded quiet judgment. The receptionist's poised expression rivaled that of a high-fashion magazine cover, and the sharply dressed executives glowed with confidence. In stark contrast, Ava appeared as though she had accidentally wandered in from a backyard barbecue. "Hi, good morning. I'm here for the assistant interview," she announced, forcing a smile despite her inner turmoil and the unmistakable flap-flap sound of her loose ballet flat. The receptionist barely glanced up as she pronounced, "Name, Ava Brooks. 25th floor." Taking the elevator, Ava caught a glimpse of herself in the mirrored walls and offered a crooked smile. "Everything's under control," she whispered to herself. But fate had other plans. When the elevator doors opened, Ava stepped out and immediately collided with none other than Jackson. The impact was so precise that his perfectly brewed, steaming hot coffee turned into a brown waterfall, cascading over his crisp white shirt. Ava froze, mortified. Jackson looked down at his ruined shirt, then back up at her in stunned silence. "Oh my God, I'll pay for the shirt," Ava blurted, frantically yanking a crumpled $20 bill from her purse and attempting to shove it into his hand. Jackson raised an eyebrow in disbelief. $20? You think that covers the situation? Ava's eyes darted from the coffee spill to the receipt stuck to his shirt and finally to his face. "Okay, how about 5 installments and some free SAS?" she offered sheepishly. Jackson nearly choked on his laughter. "I'm just trying to get to my interview," she explained, blushing. "I'm applying for the assistant position, Ava." "Brooks." With a resigned gesture, Jackson stepped aside, pointing toward the interview room's door. "Oh well, good luck, Ava. You're going to need it." Unaware of the identity of the man she had just collided with, Ava mumbled a hesitant thanks and walked into the interview room. Inside, the atmosphere was already fraught with tension. Her heart pounded like the soundtrack of a suspense film, and the lingering aroma of spilled coffee reminded her of the disastrous elevator encounter. The room was vast and intimidating, a gleaming glass table reflecting every anxious detail of her appearance. 3 stern-faced interviewers, each clutching a copy of her resume, sat waiting. "Miss Brooks, is that correct?" inquired a woman with a severe bun and a look that suggested she had spent the day sniffing lemons. "Absolutely right," Ava replied too enthusiastically, almost saluting the panel. They exchanged brief glances before a gray-haired man, whose presence reminded one of a courtroom drama, prompted, "You may start by introducing yourself." With as much confidence as she could muster, Ava flashed a big smile and, inadvertently yanking the bobby pin still clinging to her torn dress, began, "My name is Ava Brooks, and I love learning new things." Before she could continue, her phone, she was sure it had been silenced, blared a chaotic remix of Happy Birthday intermingled with an ambulance siren. It was a masterpiece of madness personally curated by Megan. In a panic, Ava yanked the phone from her bag, frantically pressing every button until she accidentally answered the call. "Girl, did you get in? Did you spill anything?" came Megan's voice, loud enough for the entire room to hear. In a desperate attempt to silence the chaos, Ava abruptly ended the call, almost as if trying to exorcise the phone. "I'm so sorry. My friend thinks I died. It's a protocol thing," she stammered, forcing a nervous laugh. The gray-haired interviewer cleared his throat and continued, "Let's proceed. What would you say are your greatest skills?" Ava's mind blanked for a moment before she blurted, "I can do a really good motorcycle horn impression." The interviewer's eyes narrowed. "I mean, work-related skills, of course." Flustered, Ava tried to recover. "I'm great at improvising. For example, today the bobby pin holding my dress together is also excellent for keeping papers in place. Versatility is my middle name." Before anyone could process her words, a sudden gust of wind blew through the open window, sending her resume sailing into the air vent, where it was sucked in like a rogue vacuum. On instinct, Ava lunged to retrieve it, and in the process, she knocked over a glass of water that cascaded onto one of the interviewer's documents. "Oh my God, I'll dry it," she exclaimed, scrambling to help by pulling out a piece of paper from her bag. But to her horror, it turned out not to be a spare notepad but her grocery list, which was scrawled in bold with items like extra strong laxative, deodorant that actually works, and sanitary pads. The silence in the room grew. "So thick it could be cut with a knife? I'm extremely organized, as you can see," she offered with a hopeful smile. The woman with the tight bun sighed deeply, rubbing her temples. "Miss Brooks, why do you want to work at Reed Global?" This was a question Ava had rehearsed 100 times, in the mirror on the bus, in the shower, even while frying eggs that morning. But now, in the crucible of the interview, her mind became a barren desert. "Because I need to pay my bills, and it would be wonderful to do that without selling homemade fudge on the street," she confessed, swallowing hard. Asterisk the gray-haired man removed his glasses and remarked, "You do realize this is a serious multinational company, right?" "Absolutely," Ava nodded frantically. "And that's why I promise that if you hire me, I'll stop selling fudge and devote all my energy to this job. Would you like to try one? I brought free samples." As if the universe had one final test of dignity, Ava reached into her bag to retrieve a sample of fudge and instead produced a crumpled, rolled-up pair of tights. "That's not fudge," the interviewer muttered, shoving it back into her bag and pretending nothing was amiss. The panel was visibly stunned. None of them had ever interviewed anyone like this before. Just then, the door swung open, and Jackson Reed reappeared, his coffee-stained shirt still evident and a barely concealed smile playing on his lips. He strolled toward the table. Ava, startled, stared at him and then shouted, "You," as if he were a ghost. The interviewers exchanged confused glances. "Do you two know each other?" the woman with the bun asked. "Hyun, the coffee guy," Ava blurted out, and Jackson crossed his arms, clearly amused. "I'm the CEO," he corrected coolly. Ava's face went pale for a moment before she managed to stutter. I have a nervous breakdown for." "Just a minute." Jackson waved her off. "I came here personally to end the interview. In fact, this candidate has exactly what the company needs: courage, creativity, and the rare ability to turn any ordinary situation into something unforgettable." Ava's heart sank as she muttered, "I knew I ruined everything." But before she could rise, Jackson interjected, "No, Ava, you're hired." The room fell silent as everyone processed this stunning turn of events. Even Ava herself could hardly believe it. Later that day, as she trudged home, her legs trembling and her mind swirling with disbelief, she clutched the crumpled $20 bill she'd once attempted to offer in the elevator. "Is this a sign from the universe? Or just proof that I'm a walking disaster?" She mused softly amid the sea of impeccably dressed executives who inhabited an entirely different world at a tea home. Megan was waiting with a pot of fragrant Badero and a barrage of questions. "So, were you fired before or after the interview?" she asked, shoving a spoonful of Brigido into Ava's mouth. "I got hired," Ava answered, her words muffled by the food as if she could hardly believe it herself. Megan's eyes widened in shock. "Hired? How did you threaten them?" hypnotized the interviewer. "I have no idea," Ava shrugged, throwing her hands up in exasperation. "I was a complete disaster. I spilled water, almost fell out the window, spilled coffee on the CEO, and even called him the coffee guy. And somehow he still hired me." Megan choked on her Brigido, overcome with disbelief. "You spilled coffee on the CEO and still walked out with a job? You're a living legend." Amid laughter and disbelief, the two friends spent the night joking that Ava must possess some accidental spell that transformed public humiliation into a signed contract. Yet, Ava remained unsure of what awaited her on her very first day at work. The next morning, determined to appear professional despite her previous fiasco, Ava arrived at Reed Global dressed in a crisp white blouse, a pencil skirt, and a pair of heels rescued from the depths of her closet. Shoes that likely once belonged to a great aunt famed for dancing bolero in the 80s. As soon as she stepped into the building, she sensed that all eyes were on her. Whispers floated around, and it wasn't long before rumors began circulating. "Is that the coffee girl?" a marketing analyst whispered, while an intern remarked, "I heard she's Jackson's niece, or his secret lover, or even a witch." Another voice, completely unaware of the brewing legend, simply concluded, "Which makes sense." Ava clutched her temporary badge and took the elevator up to the executive floor, where her new workstation was located right next to Jackson's office. Her very first assignment was seemingly simple: organize Jackson's digital files. However, for Ava, simple was an abstract concept. Within minutes, she had mixed up folders, sent confidential documents to the HR printer by mistake, and even set Jackson's email to automatically reply with a GIF of a dancing llama. A GIF that promptly greeted a group of Chinese investors when Jackson stepped out of a meeting. "Ava," Jackson called out, trying to stifle his laughter as he stared at the screen. "Do you think this dancing llama inspires corporate confidence?" Ava peered anxiously at him. "Depends on the company," she replied in a half-joking tone. Jackson shook his head, though he couldn't help but smile. "Congratulations, Ava. You've set a new record for chaos in under 2 hours." Throughout the following days, life at Reed Global became a roller coaster of mishaps. Ava was a magnet for small disasters. One day, she attempted to make coffee for Jackson but ended up setting off the fire alarm. Another day, she tripped over her own shoelace, and knocked over an important stack of contracts. On yet another occasion, she answered an international call in a mix of English and Spanish, the latter borrowed straight from a Mexican soap opera, leaving everyone baffled by her unexpected performance. Each mishap left Jackson torn between exasperation and amusement, and despite the daily chaos, he found himself unable to stay angry. In fact, Ava's presence began to breathe life into the formerly staid executive floor. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some speculated she was a spy sent to test his patience. Others whispered she might be the secret daughter of a powerful billionaire, and still others claimed that she had once saved his life in a previous incarnation. Through it all, Ava simply continued being herself, and to Jackson, that was both refreshing and oddly magnetic. One day, Jackson was invited to an important business dinner with foreign clients. For reasons he couldn't even explain, he decided to bring Ava along. "You want me to go to a high-level business dinner?" Ava asked in shock. "Are you sure?" Jackson replied. "I'm a walking disaster, after all." With a smirk, he added, "Exactly. I don't have anything to wear for such occasions, and the company will cover it. Plus, if the conversation ever gets dull, at least I know you'll create some chaos to liven up the night." That evening, Ava arrived at the elegant restaurant in a striking red dress chosen by Megan to ensure she stood out, paired with heels so high they could be mistaken for potential weapons. Nervous but determined, she did her best to hide her anxiety by talking nonstop. Everything was proceeding relatively well until Ava noticed one of the clients, a dignified gentleman holding a tray of appetizers, and without thinking blurted out, "Hey, sir, could you bring me a really stuffed chicken croquette? I'm feeling fancy tonight." The man, one of the most important investors in Asia, paused in shock as silence fell over the table. Jackson closed his eyes for a brief moment as Ava froze in terror. Then, to everyone's amazement, the client burst into hearty laughter. Laughter so infectious that it caused wine to spurt from his nose. What should have been the end of Ava's career instead turned into a boon. The clients were charmed by her spontaneity. On their way home, Jackson leaned over and said, "You are the most disastrously brilliant person I've ever met." Ava grinned in disbelief. Is that a compliment or a medical diagnosis? Maybe a little bit of both. Determined to be more professional the next morning, Ava spent the previous night studying a corporate etiquette guide while munching on cold pizza. She even jotted down formal phrases to use with her colleagues and superiors. Her goal was simple: go 24 hours without causing a mini-apocalypse in the office. However, being Ava Brooks, that goal was doomed from the start. Upon arriving, she tried to scan her ID badge at the electronic gate, but mistakenly pulled out a pack of gum instead, rubbing it against the scanner as if the minty adhesive might bribe the gate into opening. "Are you trying to bribe the gate with mint?" a familiar voice asked. Looking up, Ava saw Jackson holding his coffee, this time in a spill-proof cup, no doubt having learned from previous mishaps. "Oh, good morning, sir. I mean Jackson," she stuttered, finally retrieving her actual ID badge. "Good morning, Ava," he replied with a smirk, clearly bracing himself for the day's inevitable disasters that at her desk. Ava found a neat stack of documents accompanied by a friendly note from Ethan, Jackson's personal assistant. "Ava, please scan these contracts and save them as PDFs in the Drive folder titled Urgent Contracts 2025. Let me know if you have any questions." What sounded like a simple task quickly spiraled into chaos for Ava. In less than half an hour, she had managed to scan the contracts upside down, save them as image files instead of PDFs, and rename them with titles like Help Paperwork and Mystery Document 3. Then, while attempting to open a drawer for more sheets, the hem of her skirt caught on the handle, causing the entire contents of the drawer, staplers, sticky notes, and paper clips, to tumble to the floor like confetti. "Great start, Ava," she muttered, crouched among the scattered office supplies. It wasn't long before her phone rang again. This time, determined to sound professional, she answered in her best executive tone. "Executive office, Ava speaking. How may I help you?" On the other end, Jackson's amused voice inquired, "Any chance you could bring me a coffee?" "Of course," Ava replied eagerly, thinking that finally doing something simple would restore her confidence. The plan was straightforward: grab a coffee from the hallway machine, and deliver it to Jackson's office. But in the universe of Ava Brooks, even the simplest tasks turned into Olympic challenges. As she attempted to pour the coffee, the machine shot the liquid out with such force that it splattered across her blouse and flooded the tray. Not noticing her error, she added sugar to the wrong cup, stirred it with the tip of a pen, and when she picked up the cup, she accidentally hit the machine's safety button, triggering a maintenance alarm. By the time she reached Jackson's office, the coffee resembled a bubbling magic potion, dripping incessantly. "Here's your coffee, sir. Fresh and full of personality," she announced, trying to maintain her composure. Jackson took the cup, shook his head, and replied, "Thanks, Ava. I'll savor every drop for the next few hours." Ava's attempts to be productive throughout the day only led to more mishaps. She answered emails, though she accidentally signed one as LCA instead of her name, organized a spreadsheet that inexplicably recorded a $500,000 transaction as the purchase of 5,000 chicken croquettes, and during a video conference with German investors, she confidently greeted them with "good moolah" instead of "good morning." Despite the continuous calamities, Ava's reputation within Reed Global began to grow. By lunchtime, she decided she deserved a break and headed to the office kitchen for the instant noodles she'd stashed in her bag. Unfamiliar with the high-tech microwave, she pressed what she thought was the start button but inadvertently activated the grill mode instead. In moments, her noodles transformed into a fireball, filling the room with smoke and setting off the fire alarm. As everyone evacuated the floor, Ava, coughing and clutching her now-melted noodle cup, was forced to explain to security that this was not an act of corporate sabotage, but merely the consequence of hunger and her severe lack of culinary skills. Back at her desk, now dubbed the girl who almost blew up the break room, Ava attempted to focus on a cost report. However, her next challenge arrived in the form of an international client's call. Summoning every ounce of confidence, she answered, "Executive office, Ava speaking." "Hello." On the other end, Mr. Wong from Hong Kong requested to speak to Mr. Reed. Nervously, Ava replied, "Yes, Mr. Wong. No problem. I'll call the boss." At that very moment, Jackson happened to be passing by the door and leaned against the wall, struggling to keep from collapsing with laughter. "Ava, please, never change," he said, still chuckling. The day ended with Ava inadvertently locking herself in the file room after pulling the wrong door shut. For a grueling 30 minutes, she shouted for help until Ethan finally found her. "How did you even manage to get locked in here?" he asked with genuine curiosity. "I have special talents," Ava deadpanned. Her tone as serious as if she were presenting a business proposal. That very evening, Jackson summoned Ava into his office. "Have a seat," he said, gesturing toward the chair before his desk. "Am I fired?" Ava asked immediately, her voice trembling with anxiety. "Amazingly, no," Jackson replied, crossing his arms and studying her intently. "Tell me, do you do all this on purpose, or is it some kind of hidden talent?" Ava tried to feign innocence. "Every step I take feels like a new episode of a prank show. Today alone, you set noodles on fire, confused German investors with a transaction about chicken croquettes, and nearly caused a financial crisis with that croquette incident." She protested. "That croquette thing was an honest mistake." But Jackson only chuckled. "I don't think you do it on purpose. Life just happens to hate you a little." After a long pause, he added, "Well, it might sound crazy, but I like it. I like you, Ava." For a moment, Ava blinked in surprise. "Does that mean, welcome to Reed Global?" Jackson smiled warmly and said, "And bring those brigados tomorrow. I'm curious now." Still frozen in shock, Ava managed only a hesitant, "Sure thing, coffee boss," before departing to in the days that followed. Ava's life at Reed Global became a series of absurd yet endearing mishaps. She found herself tripping over her own feet, spilling coffee on important documents, and inadvertently turning serious meetings into impromptu stand-up routines. Her blunders soon became the talk of the office, and while some colleagues whispered that she might be a spy sent to test Jackson's patience, others simply marveled at how one person could turn every mundane task into a memorable escapade. One morning, as Ava arrived at work in an attempt to appear more professional, sporting a neatly pressed white blouse, a pencil skirt, and a pair of heels that had seen better days. She couldn't help but feel that the entire building was watching her. The rumor mill was in full swing. "Have you heard?" whispered a marketing analyst. "They say she's either Jackson's secret lover, his niece, or even a witch." An intern added, "Witch? That actually makes sense." Amid the speculation, Ava remained blissfully unaware of her sudden rise to near-legendary status within the company. Her new routine quickly took an unexpected turn when Jackson himself invited her to accompany him to an important business dinner with foreign clients. "You're coming?" Ava asked in disbelief. "Yes," Jackson replied with a playful smirk. "I need someone whose chaotic energy can liven up a dinner if the conversation ever gets boring." That night, Ava arrived at the upscale restaurant in a striking red dress. A bold choice, thanks to Megan's careful picking, and heels that looked more like medieval torture devices. Despite her nerves, she tried to project confidence by talking nonstop. Yet, as the evening progressed, chaos found her once again. When one of the clients was carrying a tray of appetizers, Ava blurted out, "Hey, sir, could you bring me a really stuffed chicken croquette? I'm feeling fancy tonight." The room fell silent. Even Jackson closed his eyes in disbelief for a moment. Then, much to everyone's surprise, the client erupted in laughter so uncontrollably that wine spewed from his nose. What should have been the end of Ava's career instead became a triumph. The clients loved her spontaneity, and as they left that night, Jackson remarked, "You are the most disastrously brilliant person I've ever met." Ava, still processing the surreal turn of events, could only grin and ask, "Is that a compliment or a diagnosis?" Jackson simply replied, "Maybe a little bit of both." Determined to prove that she could be more than just a walking disaster, Ava dedicated herself to becoming more professional. The night before her next day at work, she devoured a corporate etiquette guide while munching on cold pizza and jotting down formal phrases for her colleagues and superiors. Her goal was modest: 24 hours of pristine behavior without triggering a mini-apocalypse. But as soon as she stepped into the office, fate intervened. In a moment of distraction, she attempted to scan her ID badge at the electronic gate, but instead produced a pack of gum, which she then rubbed against the scanner as if it were a magic key. "Are you trying to bribe the gate with mint?" Jackson teased from nearby, his spill-proof coffee in hand. "Good morning, Jackson," she stuttered, finally retrieving her badge. "Good morning, Ava," he replied, his smile hinting at the misadventures yet to come. At her desk, Ava's first assignment was to organize a stack of digital contracts. A friendly note from Ethan, the personal assistant, instructed her to scan and save the documents as PDFs. What could have been a routine task quickly descended into chaos as Ava managed to scan the documents upside down, save them as images instead of PDFs, and rename the files with titles like Help Paperwork and Mystery Document 3. In the midst of this, she attempted to open a drawer for more supplies, only to have the hem of her skirt catch on the handle, sending staplers, sticky notes, and paper clips cascading across the floor. "Great start, Ava," she muttered to herself as she crouched amidst the office confetti. Just then, her phone rang again. Determined to sound as professional as possible, she answered, "Executive office, Ava speaking. How may I help you?" On the other end, Jackson's amused voice asked, "Any chance you could bring me a coffee?" Eager to redeem herself, Ava agreed. The simple task soon turned into another epic battle with technology. The coffee machine spewed liquid with reckless force, her attempts to add sugar went awry, and by the time she reached Jackson's office, her coffee resembled a bubbling, dripping potion. "Here's your coffee, sir. Fresh and full of personality," she announced, attempting a smile. Jackson accepted the cup with a shake of his head and remarked, "Thanks, Ava. I'll savor every drop." Despite her best efforts to be productive, mishaps continued to plague her. One email was signed with the initials LCA instead of her full name. A spreadsheet erroneously recorded a $500,000 transaction as the purchase of 5,000 chicken croquettes. And during a video conference with German investors, she confidently greeted them with "good moolah" instead of "good morning." And yet, despite all these calamities, Ava's unconventional charm began to win over her colleagues. Office. Gossip spread that she might be a spy sent to test Jackson's patience, or even the secret daughter of a powerful billionaire. Rumors that only added to her mystique. Then came a twist that would forever change the course of her life. One day, as Jackson was preparing for an important business dinner with foreign clients, he suddenly announced that Ava would be joining him. A dinner with clients? Ava asked, her voice tinged with both disbelief and anxiety. Yes, Jackson replied with a mischievous glint in his eyes. I need your chaotic energy to liven up the evening. At the dinner, Ava arrived in a daring red dress and towering heels, and despite her nerves, she tried to remain composed. Yet, in a moment of unthinking spontaneity, she blurted out to one of the distinguished clients, Sir, could you bring me a really stuffed chicken croquette? I'm feeling fancy tonight. The stunned silence that followed was broken only when the client burst into hearty laughter, causing wine to spurt unexpectedly from his nose. In that instant, what could have been the end of her career instead transformed into an unexpected triumph. The clients were charmed by her candid spontaneity, and Jackson later confessed, You are the most disastrously brilliant person I've ever met. Ava could only laugh, questioning whether the remark was a compliment or a diagnosis, and perhaps a bit of both. As the days turned into weeks, Ava's life at Reed Global became an unpredictable whirlwind of minor disasters and unexpected successes. One morning, after a particularly tumultuous night of rest, filled with dreams of spilled coffee and errant bobby pins, Ava arrived at the office determined to leave her clumsy reputation behind. Dressed professionally in a pristine white blouse, pencil skirt, and heels that, despite their questionable origins, looked the part, she hoped that today would be different. Yet, from the moment she stepped into the building, her reputation preceded her. Whispers of the coffee girl filled the corridors, and many speculated wildly about her origins, some saying she was Jackson's secret lover, others that she was a witch, and still others that she was destined to bring chaos wherever she went. One particularly eventful day found Ava tasked with organizing digital files, a seemingly mundane chore that quickly spiraled into hilarious calamity. Not only did she mix up folders and send confidential documents to the HR printer by mistake, but she also inadvertently set Jackson's email to automatically reply with a dancing llama gif. When Jackson later discovered the unexpected animation, greeting a group of international investors, he could barely contain his laughter. Ava, he called out, a mixture of exasperation and amusement in his voice. Do you think this dancing llama inspires corporate confidence? Ava, standing at the doorway with a look of guilty uncertainty, replied, I suppose it depends on the company. Jackson shook his head with a fond smile. Congratulations, you've set a new record for chaos in under 2 hours. Soon, life at Reed Global became a blend of constant disasters and unexpected moments of levity. One incident involved Ava attempting to make coffee for Jackson only to trigger the fire alarm. Another had her locking herself in the file room for a full 30 minutes before Ethan rescued her. Each new misadventure added to the growing legend of Ava Brooks, the walking disaster who, despite every setback, somehow managed to capture the heart of the company's stoic CEO. It wasn't long before Jackson decided that he could no longer imagine the company without Ava's unconventional spark. One day, after a particularly calamitous morning in which Ava had managed to misfile contracts, spill coffee on crucial documents, and even send an email with the subject, Good Moolah, Jackson proposed a challenge. I bet I can turn you into a refined lady in 30 days, he declared with a sly smile. If I succeed, you'll owe me a proper dinner. And if not, if you remain this walking disaster, then you'll treat me to a week's worth of breakfast on me. Ava, never one to back down from a challenge or a good laugh, shook his hand immediately. Deal, she said, adding with a grin, but only if you buy me breakfast every day with pancakes, bacon, and orange juice. Thus began a surreal, week-long training regimen under the guidance of Mrs. Penelope von Schneider, a woman with a flawless bun, a designer suit, and a gaze so piercing it seemed capable of judging even dust particles. Penelope, an expert in etiquette and behavior, was tasked with teaching Ava the refined art of corporate decorum. The lessons were as challenging as they were humorous. In one session, Penelope set up a makeshift dinner table and explained the proper use of a napkin. Ava, eager to impress, picked up the napkin, folded it into a small boat, and declared triumphantly, "I learned this from a tutorial. On your lap." Penelope's eyes narrowed in exasperation as she corrected her repeatedly. In another exercise, Ava was instructed to walk with elegance while balancing a thick book on her head. After only 3 steps, the book slipped, and in her desperate attempt to catch it, she knocked over a carefully arranged tea tray, sending cups and saucers crashing to the floor. Despite the calamities, Penelope persisted with additional lessons. On formal speech and proper posture, Ava repeated phrases such as, "Good afternoon," "It's a pleasure to meet you," until even her stumbles became a sort of quirky performance art. Jackson watched these sessions with a mix of concern and delight. Slowly, he came to the realization that trying to transform Ava into a picture of corporate perfection was as futile as trying to teach a cat to fly. Her natural clumsiness was inextricably intertwined with her charm, and, deep down, he knew that she didn't need to change. In fact, her authentic, unpredictable nature was exactly what had breathed life into his otherwise cold and predictable world that AS fate would have. The day arrived when Jackson was scheduled to attend an important business dinner with foreign investors. In a move that both surprised and delighted him, he insisted that Ava join him. "You want me to go to a high-level business dinner?" Ava asked, her voice a blend of shock and nervous humor. "Are you sure?" Jackson replied. "Absolutely. I need your chaotic energy. And besides, if the conversation ever gets boring, at least I know you'll create a little excitement." That evening, Ava arrived clad in a borrowed black dress and heels that felt like instruments of medieval torture. Once again, her nerves were palpable, yet she greeted the guests with an enthusiastic, if unconventional, charm. During the dinner, amidst sparkling chandeliers, gleaming glassware, and impeccably dressed patrons, Ava couldn't help but let her personality shine. When a waiter passed by with a tray of appetizers, she impulsively said, "Sir, could you get me a well-stuffed chicken croquette? I'm feeling fancy tonight." The comment, delivered with an innocence that was uniquely hers, caused a brief moment of stunned silence. Then, in an almost miraculous turn, one of the clients, a prominent investor from Asia, burst into uncontrollable laughter, wine spurting from his nose. The room's tension melted away, replaced by genuine amusement. Jackson, watching from across the table, remarked later that night, "You are, without a doubt, the most disastrously brilliant person I've ever met." Ava, red-faced and still reeling from the incident, could only laugh and ask, "Is that a compliment or a diagnosis?" Jackson simply smiled, leaving her to wonder as the days turned into weeks. The initially staged facade of a fake relationship between Jackson and Ava began to blur. Their banter, shared mishaps, and small acts of kindness gradually wove a tapestry of genuine affection. One fateful afternoon, after a particularly chaotic day at the office, Jackson invited Ava to join him in an impromptu game of truth or dare while they were stuck in an elevator. With the doors closed and the world reduced to the cramped space between them, they began to play. "Truth or dare?" Jackson asked with a mischievous glint. "Truth," Ava replied cautiously. "Do you like working here?" he asked, teasingly. Ava grinned. "I do, mostly because I never know if I'm going to get fired or promoted after each new disaster." The game took an unexpected turn when Jackson, daring her, moved closer. "Close your eyes," he instructed, and when Ava obeyed, he whispered, "Tell me the first thing you thought when you saw me, not knowing I was your boss." When Ava opened her eyes, surprised at the intimacy of the question, Jackson admitted with a laugh, "I thought you were a handsome model, or perhaps a perfume salesman. I've always had a terrible track record of judging first impressions." In that vulnerable moment, as the elevator shuddered and the closeness intensified, Ava lost her balance and tumbled directly into Jackson's arms. Their faces came mere inches apart, and in that suspended moment, with Ava's handbag and his half-finished cup of tea still in hand, they shared an awkward yet perfect kiss, a kiss that neither of them had planned, but that spoke volumes of the unexpected spark. Between them, their newfound closeness did not go unnoticed. Rumors about the fake relationship began to swirl and evolve into something far more genuine. Yet, complications reared their head in the form of Ashley Montgomery, Jackson's ex-fiancée, whose reappearance threatened to upend the delicate balance that had formed between him and Ava. Ashley, with her tall blonde hair, flawless style, and a smirk that suggested she knew all the secrets, made a grand entrance at the office one morning. With a look that conveyed both disdain and determination, she addressed Ava directly. "So, you must be the infamous backward dress girl." Ava, never one to let a jab go unanswered, smiled sweetly. "Pleasure to meet you. You must be the ex everyone talks about," she replied with a casual grace that belied the tension in the air. Ashley's retort was sharp, referencing old scandals and past mistakes, and soon a subtle but fierce rivalry erupted, not only in the halls of Reed Global, but also online. Meme wars and social media jabs ensued, with Ava's supporters calling her Team Ava and Ashley's loyalists insisting she was the true heir to Jackson's heart. Through it all, Jackson found himself caught in the middle, amused yet troubled by the public spectacle. Despite the external chaos, Ava and Jackson's connection deepened in quiet moments away from prying eyes. A press conference provided one such moment when Jackson, to reinforce the carefully staged romance, held Ava's hand and announced that every day with her was a surprise. Off camera that night, in the privacy of her modest apartment, Ava confided in Megan, "I think I'm actually starting to like him for real." Megan, ever the playful friend, teased, "Of course you are. You're the main character in a real-life romantic comedy." But Ava knew that what had begun as a ridiculous, impromptu performance was now evolving into something serious, a feeling that both thrilled and frightened her. Yet, as the relationship began to shift from contrived to genuine, the mounting attention and constant media scrutiny grew too overwhelming. One afternoon, after yet another round of public embarrassments and scandalous gossip, Ava made a decision that stunned everyone. With trembling hands, she handed Jackson a resignation letter. "I can't stay here," she said softly. "Not with everything that's happening." Jackson's eyes widened in shock as he reached out to her, but Ava had already turned and walked away, leaving him clutching the envelope as if it were a piece of his own heart. In the days that followed, Ava vanished from the office. She didn't return calls or messages, retreating instead into a solitary routine of binge-watching bad reality shows and eating ice cream straight from the tub, her way of coping with the chaos that had once defined her every day. Then, almost as if fate were giving her a second chance, a golden invitation arrived in the mail. The embossed Reed Global logo glimmered on the envelope, and inside lay a special invitation to the company's annual event, a celebration of originality. Handwritten in a graceful script was a note. "It wouldn't be a true celebration without you here. With care, Jackson." Megan, who had been following the unfolding drama closely, waved the invitation excitedly. "This is basically a romantic summons. Or a trap," she declared, and after a moment's hesitation, Ava allowed herself a mischievous smile. "Maybe it's both," she murmured. "But if there's one thing I know, it's how to make an impression." That evening, Ava arrived at the gala wearing the same unforgettable blue dress from her infamous interview, completely inside out, with the giant tag swinging over her chest and one strap awkwardly twisted. As she entered the lobby, all eyes turned to her. Some were shocked, others admiring her bold embrace of her own originality. Jackson, who was mid-speech on stage when he caught sight of her, couldn't help but break into genuine laughter, just as he had on that very first day. Unable to continue his prepared remarks, he stepped off the stage, grabbed the microphone, and walked directly toward Ava. "Tonight, we're not just celebrating originality," he declared, his eyes locked on hers. "We're celebrating the person who taught me that perfection is overrated. That sometimes the best things in life happen when everything goes wrong." Pausing as the room fell silent, he continued, "This person, Ava Brooks, showed me that laughing until you cry is better than trying to always look serious, that spilled coffee can be the beginning of a great story, and that true love is the kind that embraces every flaw, whether they're right side up or inside out." Then, with a dramatic flourish, Jackson knelt in the middle of the lobby, pulled a small box from his pocket, and opened it. "Ava Brooks, will you marry me?" and helped me turn every day of my life into a beautifully chaotic romantic comedy. The room erupted into applause and cheers. Megan, who had been watching the spectacle on her phone, burst into tears of joy as Ava, her eyes brimming with tears, took a trembling breath before replying, "Only if I can keep wearing my dresses." "The wrong way." Jackson laughed, replying, "Deal? I promise never to complain." And with that, their fates were sealed as they kissed in a moment punctuated by the tossing of cocktail napkin flower petals and the spontaneous celebration of a double event, the company's annual gathering and the CEO's most unexpected engagement. Asterisk in the months that followed, the wedding of Jackson and Ava was as unconventional as their love story. There were mishaps at every turn, a veil that caught on a stray shoe, forgotten vows, and even a collapsed cake before the first slice could be cut, but none of it mattered. In the midst of the chaos, as they danced barefoot under twinkling lights on a makeshift dance floor, Jackson leaned in and whispered, "This is the most perfect wedding in the world, even with my torn shirt, the fallen cake, and my dad crying so much he nearly fainted." Smiling, Ava cupped his face and replied, "With you, even chaos feels perfect." Their laughter and shared glances were proof enough that together they could turn any disaster into the happiest moment of all in the days after the wedding, as they settled into a life that balanced the unpredictable with moments of tender routine. Ava often reflected on the incredible journey that had begun with a disastrous interview and a series of absurd misadventures. What had once been a string of mishaps had blossomed into a genuine love story, a romantic comedy written in real time, filled with spilled coffee, misdirected bobby pins, and spontaneous kisses in elevators. Jackson, still her formidable CEO, and now her loving partner, continued to marvel at how the chaos that defined Ava also defined the vibrant, life-affirming energy she brought into his world. Their days were filled with playful banter and unexpected surprises. On motivational Mondays, Ava would show up with a bag of donuts and an oversized coffee, determined to brighten Jackson's early mornings with sugary treats and heartfelt sticky note messages like, "Honey, don't forget to eat lunch," or "Take care, company sweetheart." In return, Jackson found himself laughing more than he had in years, even as he navigated board meetings and international calls that now carried the lightness of a shared secret. Yet, not everything was without challenge. Ashley Montgomery, the formidable ex-fiancée, continued to cast a long shadow over their lives. Her occasional appearances and barbed remarks stoked an undercurrent of rivalry that spilled over into the digital realm. Meme wars ensued, with Ashley posting old photos of Jackson at fancy French restaurants, while Ava countered with snapshots of casual moments, like sharing chicken nuggets on the couch. The playful feud soon became a full-blown online spectacle, with both sides rallying supporters and trading jabs in a battle for the title of the true romantic lead. Jackson, caught between ex and assistant, often found himself exasperated, remarking, "You two are going to destroy my reputation, or make me the most famous CEO in America." And yet, amidst the chaos, Ava and Jackson's bond only grew stronger. One unforgettable morning, after an especially tumultuous night that had seen Ashley's final provocative move in an exclusive interview for a corporate gossip site, Ava made a bold decision. With a mix of sorrow and determination, she handed Jackson her resignation letter. "I can't stay here," she whispered. "Not with everything that's happening. I'm great at creating chaos, but now I need to learn how to clean up my own mess." Jackson, stunned and heartbroken, could only watch as she walked out, leaving him standing in the middle of the office clutching the envelope as if it were a piece of his very soul. In the days that followed, Ava withdrew from the office and from the whirlwind of media attention. She secluded herself, binge-watching terrible reality shows and drowning her thoughts in tubs of ice cream, while Megan attempted to talk sense into her. "You can't just run away," Megan chided gently. "This isn't a teen movie." But Ava, ever the master of mishaps, simply replied, "Running away is my hidden talent." Then, almost as if fate had one more twist in store, a golden envelope arrived in the mail, a special invitation to the annual Read Global event, themed as a celebration of originality. Inside the envelope, embossed with the company's logo and signed by Jackson himself, was a handwritten note. It wouldn't be a true celebration without you here. With care, Jackson. Megan, waving the invitation triumphantly, declared, "This is basically a romantic summons, or maybe a trap." After a few moments of contemplation, Ava's mischievous smile reappeared. "I'll make an impression," she resolved. Asterisk that night at the gala, Ava arrived in her signature style. She wore the same unforgettable blue dress from that infamous interview, inside out, with the giant tag swinging over her chest, an uneven hem, and one strap twisted askew. As she stepped into the lobby, every eye in the room was drawn to her. Some looked on in shock, others in admiration, but all recognized her as the company's official walking disaster. Jackson, who was in the midst of delivering the opening speech, caught sight of her and couldn't contain his laughter. He abandoned his prepared remarks and strode off the stage to meet her. "Tonight, we're not just celebrating originality," he announced, locking eyes with Ava. "We're celebrating the person who taught me that perfection is overrated. That sometimes the best things in life happen when everything goes wrong. You, Ava Brooks, have shown me that spilling coffee can lead to the most wonderful stories, and that true love is found in embracing every flaw, inside out or right side up." Then, in a moment that brought the room to a hushed silence, Jackson knelt in the center of the lobby, retrieved a small box from his pocket, and, with unwavering sincerity, asked, "Ava Brooks, will you marry me and help me turn every day into a beautifully chaotic romantic comedy?" The entire room erupted into applause and cheers. Overwhelmed with emotion, Ava teared up and took the microphone. "Only if I can keep wearing my dresses the wrong way," she declared. Jackson laughed heartily and promised, "And I promise never to complain." Their hands met in a firm handshake that sealed their fate, and as guests showered them with makeshift flower petals, actually cocktail napkins, the event transformed into a double celebration, the company's annual gathering and the most unexpected engagement in corporate history. In the months that followed, the wedding of Jackson and Ava was as unconventional as their courtship. True to form, Ava arrived at the ceremony with her veil caught on her shoe, and Jackson, in a moment of sheer exasperation, forgot half of his vows. The wedding cake, intended to be a masterpiece, collapsed before the first slice could be cut. But none of these misadventures mattered. Amid the chaos, amid the spilled juice, the torn dresses, the near disasters, the couple's love shone brilliantly. Later, as they danced barefoot under twinkling lights on a makeshift dance floor, Jackson leaned in close, his eyes shining, and whispered, "With you, even chaos feels perfect." Ava, her face glowing with a mixture of laughter and tears, replied, "Then get ready, because I'm a hurricane." With that, they sealed their promise with a kiss, one that carried all the love, laughter, and beautifully unpredictable moments that had brought them together. In the aftermath, life settled into a new rhythm for both of them. Jackson remained the formidable CEO with a penchant for black coffee, although, occasionally, he'd even opt for chamomile tea, and Ava continued to be her endearingly clumsy self. Their days were punctuated by playful, sticky note messages on computer screens, "Rescue me from this meeting," and "Run away with me to a world without spreadsheets," and unexpected bursts of laughter during even the most mundane tasks. The office buzzed with whispers of their fake relationship, gradually turning into something real, and though the rivalry with Ashley Montgomery still simmered in the background, it had lost its edge as both Ava and Jackson had grown to accept that imperfection was the spice of life. Each morning, as Ava arrived at the Reed Global building with a bag of donuts in one hand and an oversized coffee in the other, she made it a point to brighten Jackson's day with motivational gestures, an odd ritual she fondly termed Motivational Mondays. And though the public and the media had their share of scandalous headlines, it was the shared moments of genuine affection, stealing glances, accidental touches, and spontaneous kisses in cramped elevators that defined their relationship. In one unforgettable instance, while stuck in an elevator after a minor malfunction, they played a game of truth or dare. When Jackson dared her to reveal the first thought she had when she saw him, not knowing he was her boss, his answer, joking, that he'd thought she looked like a handsome model or maybe even a perfume salesman, sparked laughter that echoed through the tiny space, culminating in a clumsy, heart-pounding kiss that in time. The boundaries between a staged romance and a real connection blurred. Ava and Jackson found that their shared disasters had laid the groundwork for something neither could ignore, a deep, genuine affection that had grown out of chaos and laughter. Yet even as their bond strengthened, external pressures remained. Ashley's bitter jabs and calculated attempts to reclaim Jackson's heart intensified the already heated competition between the two women. Social media erupted in meme wars, with each side trading playful insults and heartfelt declarations. Jackson, caught between nostalgia and newfound joy, often lamented, "You two are going to destroy my reputation or make me the most famous CEO in America." Despite the turmoil, however, Ava's authenticity won hearts both in the boardroom and online. Then, on one particularly charged morning following an explosive social media exchange, Ashley made her final move. In a tearful, overly dramatic interview for a corporate gossip website, she proclaimed that she still loved Jackson and was determined to win him back. Megan, sensing the impending storm, marched into Ava's office with her phone clutched tightly. "I saw it," Megan declared, as Ava took a bite of a chocolate donut with all the force of a woman who wished she were biting something else. "You may have the media, the expensive dresses, and the followers, but I have something you'll never have: the full history of every shared public embarrassment with Jackson that bonds people." Despite the joke, the weight of it all pressed down on Ava. That very afternoon, after a long internal struggle, she did something no one expected. She resigned. Handing Jackson an envelope with her resignation letter, she said, "I'm great at creating chaos, but now it's time for me to learn how to clean up my own mess." Jackson was left in shock, standing in the middle of the office as if holding a piece of his own heart. For a week, Ava disappeared from the office. She didn't answer messages or return calls, choosing instead to immerse herself in the solace of bad reality shows and tubs of ice cream. Megan tried to talk her out of it. "You can't just run away, Ava. This isn't a teen movie." Ava, spooning ice cream into her mouth, replied, "Running away is my hidden talent." Then, a week later, a golden envelope embossed with the Reed Global logo arrived by mail. Inside was a special invitation to the company's annual event, a celebration of originality, and a handwritten note from Jackson. "It wouldn't be a true celebration without you here. With care, Jackson." Megan, waving the invitation in the air, insisted, "This is a romantic summons, or maybe even a trap." After a few moments of contemplation, Ava smiled mischievously. "I'm going to make an impression," she declared that evening. At the annual gala, Ava arrived in her signature style, the blue dress from that infamous interview, worn completely inside out, with the oversized tags swinging freely, an uneven hem, and one strap casually twisted. As she entered the lobby, every eye in the room turned toward her. Some were shocked. Others, admiring her bold originality, cheered her on silently. Jackson, who was mid-speech on stage, stopped in his tracks at the sight of her. Unable to continue, he stepped off the stage, grabbed the microphone, and walked directly toward her. "Tonight," he proclaimed, locking eyes with Ava, "we're not just celebrating originality. We're celebrating the person who taught me that perfection is overrated. That sometimes, when everything goes wrong, it paves the way for the best stories. Ava, you've shown me that spilled coffee can be the start of something wonderful, and that true love embraces every flaw, whether they're right side up or inside out." Then, in a breathtaking moment that silenced the room, Jackson knelt on the polished floor, retrieved a small box from his pocket, and asked, "Ava Brooks, will you marry me and help me turn every day of my life into a beautifully chaotic romantic comedy?" The room exploded with applause and cheers. Overwhelmed, Ava's eyes filled with tears as she took the microphone. "Only if I can keep wearing my dresses the wrong way," she said, half in jest. Jackson laughed, replying, "Deal, I promise never to complain." Their hands met in a warm, affirming handshake that sealed their fate, and in that moment, as cocktail napkin flower petals flew through the air, the event became a double celebration: the company's annual gathering and the celebration of an unexpected, Imperfect loved in the aftermath of their engagement. Life continued in its unpredictable rhythm. Jackson remained a formidable CEO with a penchant for strong black coffee, occasionally interspersed with chamomile tea, much to his own surprise, and Ava continued to be her delightfully clumsy self. Their days were filled with playful sticky note messages, spontaneous breakfast runs, complete with pancakes, bacon, and orange juice, as per their agreement, and quiet moments of tenderness that belied the public spectacle they had become. Even as the office buzzed with new rumors and the ever-present shadow of Ashley Montgomery receded into the background, Ava and Jackson discovered that the chaos they had once dreaded was now the very thing that bound them together. Looking back. On her journey, from the moment she ran down the sidewalk in a dress gone awry, to the fateful interview filled with mishaps, and finally to the tender chaos of an unexpected romance, Ava realized that her life had been transformed in ways she never could have imagined. It wasn't the perfection of a meticulously planned life that brought true happiness. It was the messy, unpredictable, and wonderfully chaotic moments that, in the end, told the most authentic story. And so, as they continued their lives, whether navigating the corridors of a high-powered corporation, enduring public memes and rivalries, or simply sharing a quiet cup of coffee in the early morning light, Jackson and Ava found solace in one undeniable truth, that in a world obsessed with perfection, the greatest beauty lay in imperfection. In every spilled coffee, every misdirected email, every clumsy step, and every spontaneous kiss, they discovered that true love was not about flawless execution, but about laughing together, learning from every disaster, and embracing life exactly as it was, beautifully, chaotically, and completely real. What began as a day of misfortune evolved into an extraordinary tale of laughter, resilience, and love. A modern romantic comedy in which a determined, clumsy assistant and a stoic billionaire CEO found that sometimes the best things in life emerge when everything goes wrong. Their journey, full of unpredictable twists and heartfelt moments, reminds us all that perfection is overrated. In the end, it is the genuine, imperfect moments that make life truly unforgettable. What did you think of Jackson and Ava's story? Share your thoughts and let us know in the comment. And if you enjoyed their tale, be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more stories that celebrate the beauty in chaos and the magic in imperfection.